Torture as a moral issue. And my name is Barbara, and some of you may have seen me. I'm actually one of the research and instruction librarians at Falvey Library. So, hey, if you want to look up any more stuff on the topic, just come and see me, and I'd be happy to help you. The picture, you may have seen that image before. That is actually a painting by Picasso, and it's Child with a Dove, done in 1901. Thought I'd let you know that. So, I'd like to welcome you, and also welcome you to the discussion of a topic that is not so easy to talk about. So I just want to acknowledge and appreciate your willingness to do that. I'd like to start, again, just because we're considering not just the topic of torture, okay, but we're considering specifically torture sponsored by or conducted by the United States and workers or representatives of the United States. So that makes it all the more difficult. I'd just like to start by going around the room, and if you would just say your name and give me one single word that expresses how you feel about participating in a workshop on torture. And I'll start with myself. I'm Barbara, as I said, and actually I feel inadequate to the topic.
I'm Tony, and I'm ready.
I'm Christina, and I'm concerned.
Liza, and uneasy.
Margie.
Okay. I was going to write these on the board, except I brought a permanent marker instead of dry erase marker, so we won't be doing that. So we got an uneasy, ready, and concerned.
I'm Margie, and I'm interested.
Interested?
I was going to say interested too. I'm Amy.
Interested?
Steve, I'm excited.
Excited?
All intrigued.
Intrigued.
Leslie. Concerned.
Concerned.
And Jody, as I said, concerned or nervous.
Concerned or nervous? Interested?
Leanna, I'm curious.
Curious.
Sarah, I'm nervous.
Nervous.
Jimmy, and I guess hesitant.
Hesitant.
Meredith, I'm also curious.
Curious.
Steve, I'm interested.
Interested.
Alexis, interested.
Interested.
Adam, argumentative.
Argumentative. Okay.
Chelsea, I'm curious. Chelsea, curious.
Curious. Curious.
I'm Sarah, and I'm interested.
Interested.
I'm Jimmy, I'm interested.
Interested.
Brian, I'm intrigued.
Intrigued.
Mike, I'm defensive. Defensive.
Defensive. Curious. Curious.
I'm concerned.
Concerned.
Jesse, I'm concerned.
Concerned.
Tyler, I'm interested.
Interested.
I'm Nina, I'm curious.
Curious.
I'm Mike, I'm intrigued.
Intrigued.
I'm Nick, and I'm naive.
Naive. Okay. Okay.
Claire.
Interested. Okay.
I'm very interested.
Interested.
I'm Charlie, and I'm wary.
Wary.
Kyle, anxious.
Anxious.
Mike, I'm fascinated.
Fascinated.
Abby, and I'm curious.
Curious.
Janitra, and I'm enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic.
I'm Lisa, and I'm curious.
Curious.
I'm DJ, and I'm interested.
Interested.
I'm Andrew, and I'm interested.
Interested. Okay. And all your emotions are accepted here because we have some ground rules. Okay, so our guidelines for participation are: you have the right to pass on any question. So there will be some questions for discussion, and if you just, want to think about it yourself, that's fine. We will listen and respect everyone's opinion. Nobody here is going to be absolutely right. Speak for yourself. If you do make, I'm going to ask if you do make a statement, use an I statement. I feel this, or I think that. Questions are welcome. I'll do the best I can. If I can't answer your question right away, There's a reason why I'm a librarian, and that means I'll go and look it up for you. And finally, share the time, and we'll try and get through by 12:30, right? Or how long is it supposed to? 12:30 is the next. No, the next group starts at 1. So okay, we got a little bit of a little padding here, so that's good. Okay, so what is torture? Let's just start. Do any of you watch the show 24? Can I have a show of hands for those of you who have watched 24? Okay. We're going to take a look. First of all, those of you that expressed that you were anxious or intimidated or something like that, first of all, I want to assure you we are not going to look at any images, graphic images of torture. I'm not going to show you any images from Abu Ghraib, Bagram Air Base, Guantanamo. Not that I don't think not that I'm against doing that. It's just I felt that the 1 hour slot that we had really didn't give us enough space and time to process some of the really strong emotions that those photos evoke, if you have seen any of them. However, we will take a look at one fictitious incident of interrogation, of a kind of a very rough interrogation. And it's an incident that may have come right into your living room or your residence hall if you watch 24. And let me see if I can set this up. I have to get to, this is actually available on YouTube. It's actually a report by Jane Mayer, who is a journalist for The New Yorker, and she actually does an investigation on the production and the show itself at 24. So I'm going to try and get to where I wanted to get to. And you will hear a little bit of commentary, and that is Jane Mayer doing the commentary.
You stand a much better chance of unraveling it by creating some kind of rapport with the suspect.
I am the imam of this mosque.
A number of the methods that Jack Bauer himself uses in the show are methods that have been used by the United States government in the way they've treated detainees in the War on Terror and have been very controversial. In one scene, Jack Bauer declines to give medical help to a prisoner of his. She's a gunshot victim, and rather than helping her out,
oh, hang on, I just got. So if I, which one plug in? This one?
It's going to be one of these.
Oh. We might even get some amplification here.
The volume button is over there. It's a turning.
Oh, yeah.
On the right. On the right, yeah.
He is going to deny her medicine until she tells him where the bomb is.
Okay, let me just go back here. Okay, so let's just set it up again. It's an interrogation. How did you get the full screen? I didn't know how to do
that button on the bottom right-hand corner? No, on the screen. Yeah, that one.
Jack Bauer declines to give medical help to a prisoner of his. She's a gunshot victim. And rather than helping her out while she's in just awful pain and shrieking, he says that he is going to deny her medicine until she tells him where the bomb is. This is something that was actually done, according to news reports, to one of the top Al-Qaeda suspects in U.S. custody, Abu Zubaydah. He was shot in the groin, and according to many news reports, the U.S. officials in whose custody he was refused to give him any kind of painkillers until he told them everything he possibly could that would be of use.
Okay.
In another episode, we get to see the United States government.
Okay. It's about all that we're going to see that's in any way graphic. Okay. So, denial of medication or medical treatment to a suspect. Torture? I'll let you think about it. Here is one possible definition of torture. Torture is the intentional and systematic infliction of physical or psychological pain and suffering in order to punish, intimidate, or gather information. And this comes from a group called No to Torture, which is a religious group that I'll be telling you about in a while. And that is their definition. You can also get definitions of torture from the Geneva Conventions and also from the UN Convention Against Torture. And at the end, I do have some resources that you'll be able to take with you. So, I'm going to ask you I'm going to give you some quotes now. I'm going to read some quotations about torture that have been said in some cases by officials or by persons studying torture in the United States. If you feel strongly about it, I'd like you to kind of wave your hand, raise your hand and wave it. If you agree, just raise your hand. If you're not sure, you can fold your arms over your chest. If you disagree, your thumbs down. And if you strongly disagree, put your thumb down and kind of move it in a circle. I was actually going to try and do a count, but there's more people here than I thought, which is great. But I'll do the best I can. Also, you have the right to pass. You do not have to respond whatsoever. Statement number 1. Few Americans are eager to engage in a debate about the revival of torture as an overt practice conducted in their name. Again, if you strongly agree, put your hand up and wave it, or else just put it up. Disagree, we got the thumbs down and a circle. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that agree. 1 that agrees strongly, maybe another agreement. We got 1 person who disagrees. Okay. These again are just questions for consideration as we get further into the topic. Most people are incapable of torturing another person. Oh, we got a lot of strongly disagrees, a lot of disagrees and strongly disagrees about that one. Okay, couple people that think that do agree. Okay. Oops. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. Okay. Torture is an unpleasant means to the necessary end of protecting us. Okay, we got some agreeing, some disagreeing, strongly agreeing. So we have some agreements, okay, that torture is an unpleasant means to the necessary end. And we got some thumbs down. Torture is abhorrent to both American law and values. We have some disagrees, a couple disagrees, 1 strongly agree, and some agrees. And last one. With torture, we have, despite ourselves, become our enemies. We got some strongly disagrees. And we got a couple of agrees. Okay. What we're going to do now is a true or false. And I'm going to, if I can find what I have here. If you would find a partner, everybody find a partner. And I think I have enough of these for 1 for every 2. And what you're going to do is discuss with your partner whether the particular statement is true or false. And when your pair is finished, you can raise your hand and I'll give you the answer key. So let's see if I have enough. We may have to do 3 if I didn't make enough copies. But see if there's enough for 1 for every 2.
That's true. There's a lot of third world countries in Africa.
See how far you go.
That's like, it's about 500.
Can I take 1 from...
I have something of two with the...
Can I get like 1 or 2 more? Feel free to discuss that.
Yes, these are true.
I mean, I think that's possible.
You feel tortured.
Yeah.
What I might say is false.
It's a split issue. Some people tell you, if they don't know, they'll make it up. But if they do know it, I don't know. What do you think? Coin your head.
I don't know, true, I guess. I mean, I'm just saying, you can make a margin of the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah, I think that it's definitely fair. I guess I can agree with that.
It's probably true. Oh,
at least once it makes
Experimenting with the camera. Now I'm out of? Now I'm out of?
I'm trying to keep up with you.
Oh, okay.
True.
My first time being caught.
Constitution.
Yeah, I agree.
This is true, according to the statement.
Are you tricky with numbers?
I feel like it'd be better known the Red Cross is they probably also lose the federal funding. I guess these are the reports, not PNR.
Last year, so
Just a little question mark.
I guess maybe not all of them.
Oh, a little back.
Well, no, one's
National Conference on that's probably true.
You finished? Oh, you're finished? You may have to share the answer keys, but here we go. You ready for the answer?
That's true. That's probably true.
Yeah, the numbers are like hard to write.
False.
Everybody ready for an answer? Is there any group still working? Please put your hand up if you're still working.
Really?
Oh. Whatever. I think. There's no way we can on that. It says.
Are you ready for the answer?
Oh, are we getting these the answers?
I wish it said about more than 2 times. Less.
We did pretty well.
It's a little better.
Yeah.
Either or.
I think I know my torture. Do you guys have the answers? Yeah, I see. You're right.
Let's see.
This was a task that we did pretty damn well.
That's a good point.
Because we really
Yeah, that's a good point.
132.
Okay, can I have your attention again?
Lionel's points on the questions.
Okay, so the point of the reason I gave you the true and false questions was just to very quickly give you some facts about United States participation in torture. Which ones were you and your partner undecided about? Which ones did, or you and your partners, which were the hardest? Which did you find like the most difficult to answer? Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5. Most experts agree that the information gained through torture is unreliable. Have you heard conflicting? You've heard conflicting opinions on that?
I've heard, actually, like through the news and stuff, like sometimes if you're in the army, they get captured, they'll tell them the wrong information, what they're doing. If they're captured and tortured, they'll tell them that information instead of what's really going on. So.
Anyone else like to talk about that particular point? The information gathered through torture is reliable or unreliable?
Well, I just want to add, there was a time when, there you even have John McCain mentioned on here, one of the tactics he used was to name his commanding officers. He named at the time the starting lineup for the, I think it's Detroit. So, I mean, it's just, our military has tactics to deal with that, so it probably is unreliable.
And we've quoted, let me see, which number is that? Number 5? Yeah. We've quoted on the answer key Dr. Alfred McCoy, whose book I didn't bring with me, but it's on the resource list. Dr. Alfred McCoy wrote a book entitled The Question of Torture. And actually, he is a professor of history at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he did a very detailed inquiry and research into the use of torture by the CIA. Not only the use, but their research into psychological methods of torture, what's sometimes called torture light, if you've ever heard that term, or no-touch torture. So we're talking about things like standing the person naked in the cold and pouring a bucket of cold water on them, stress positions, being shackled to the floor, sensory deprivation, being kept for a very, very long period of time, days, weeks, in a cell, a small area, dark, with no sensory stimuli at all. things that don't leave a mark. You beat somebody, you know they've been tortured. But there actually has been research done to perfect, well, I won't say perfect, but to develop these methods of psychological torture. And if you'd like to read more about it, you could read Dr. McCoy's book, also John McCain. But basically, these experts feel that the person is in such pain that they're going to pretty much say whatever in order to make the pain stop. Any other of the statements that you found surprising? What did you find surprising? Any that you knew right off the bat? Yeah.
Number 12, I thought was kind of surprising. I've never heard anything.
Oh, Pentagon reports indicate that 50% of the prisoners at Abu Ghraib, many of whom were abused and tortured, were not guilty of anything. And I think the answer key says, yeah, 90%. It's like 88%. There's actually a report on the web called the Seton Hall report. If you just Google Seton Hall and Guantanamo, there were two lawyers that actually, they get their information from the government's own sources. They get it from the Combat Status Review Tribunals, the CSRTs, sorry. But actually, these are the groups of, I think a Combat Status Review Tribunal consists of 3 members of the military who question the particular, question the detainee. And you can actually read their proceedings. The proceedings of each of these tribunals is available on the web. Besides that, the 2 lawyers from Seton Hall kind of went through and did a summary. And the Combat Status Review Tribunals, Combat Status Review Tribunals themselves came to the conclusion that one by one, by interrogating one by one of these persons, the wrong people were pretty much picked up. They were people that were turned in for the bounty. Anybody know what the bounty was? What did the United States offer to someone who would turn in a terrorist or an Al-Qaeda member? $5,000. And that's estimated to be the amount that your typical worker in Pakistan, for instance, would have to work for 7 years to earn $5,000. So it was an extremely tempting bounty. And a lot of people were turned over because they were foreigners, because they weren't getting along with their neighbor, and it's not someone else that reached the conclusion, it's the tribunals themselves that reached this conclusion. There's only a small number of persons that were picked up that could possibly be charged with some sort of attempted crime against the United States. Many of the people were never on the battlefield. It's been said that these people were picked up on the battlefield. Very few were picked up on the battlefield. Now, at the end of 2006, does anybody remember? You may remember that President Bush announced that there were 14 high-value suspects being transferred to Guantanamo Bay. So now there's Abu Zubaydah and a few others. They really do need to be put on trial. There is a strong possibility that they may have perpetrated crimes, but of the vast majority. And there were 774 prisoners at Guantanamo Bay at the height of its population. Anybody know how many there are there now? There are 277. So as the Combat Status Review Tribunals have been finding these persons to be unchargeable, with any kind of accusation, small groups of them have been released at various times. Most recently, there was a group of 10 Saudi citizens that were released last month. So they've been slowly patriated. Of course, this is done very quietly. And you have to understand, they've been cleared, these people have been cleared, but they've been held for 4 years, 5 years. Some of them are still there, have been declared cleared, and they're still there, and it's 6 years now. So, any other comments or questions on the statements? Again, if you would like a copy, I apologize for not having one for everybody. You'll have my contact information, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you. I'm also going to upload it. I think the podcast is going to be available at a website somewhere. And I told Susan Deischer that I would send her also the handouts, so they'll be downloadable, I imagine, the same place that the podcast is downloadable. Okay, let me see where I am now. So we did our discussion. Oh, somebody pointed out, I thought it was very good, somebody pointed out question number 2. Torture has never been legal in the United States, which was considered true, but somebody pointed out that slavery at one point was legal. So I guess that does count as torture. So yeah, have to look into that question a little more. It might not be a valid question. Okay. I'm going to give out another interesting item. And again, I apologize, but you'll have to share this. These are this is a few key dates, and this has to do with the attempt to have some international guidelines on the treatment of prisoners of war. And so it'll give you some idea of the key dates involved. So maybe if you could take, let me see, I'm gonna kind of see if I did the math this way. I'm just going to give you a few minutes to look this over and get your reactions to okay, need a few more. Can I get one more from this group? You may have to all gather around. And group back here. Can I get one more copy from a group? I'm going to give you a few minutes to look over those. If you'd like to take any of the materials, go right ahead. the facts, you'll notice, are a little bit repetitive of the true and false, but that's okay. Just might be a little repetitive. A little bit easy. So let's take a look at some of the dates. We go back to 1215. We go back to the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta guarantees habeas corpus, which is the right to challenge one's imprisonment. And if we fast forward to the year 2006, anybody know the particular law that was passed in 2006, which says that federal judges cannot grant habeas corpus to those considered illegal enemy combatants? It was the Military Commissions Act, and I think that's actually on there, 2006. So in the Military Commissions Act, and in 2007, the very last date there, Arlen Specter, who is actually one of our senators here in Pennsylvania, he has been so concerned about that that he is trying to get a habeas corpus restoration act passed. He's been defeated. He originally wanted that act to be an amendment to the Military Commissions Act, so the Military Commissions Act could not take away the right of habeas corpus. That got defeated, so then he reintroduced it as sort of a retroactive, something that would restore habeas corpus, and that still has not passed. But what that would do would be, for instance, the prisoners being held at Guantanamo Bay now for 5 years, 6 years, would have the right to have an attorney, and the attorney go before a judge and say, I either want a written statement of the charges against me and a date set for my trial, or I want to be released. That is basically habeas corpus. Before the Geneva Conventions, actually going back to 1907, there was the Fourth Hague Convention that prohibited the torture of captured combatants. And then we go down. It's interesting, you can actually see the CIA's KUBAR, Counterintelligence Interrogation Manual. It's available on the web. All you have to do is just Google KUBAR. Then we start getting into post 9/11. And you can start seeing some of the executive orders and some of the other legislation that has led to are no longer fully abiding by the Geneva standards and the UN standards. The Military Commissions Act also kind of codifies how somebody can get labeled illegal enemy combatant. So an enemy combatant is a prisoner of war. It's somebody captured in the course of a war, somebody from the other side. And the Geneva Conventions and the UN Conventions Against Torture confer protections on prisoners of war or enemy combatants. However, because of the combat status review tribunals, they can declare somebody an illegal enemy combatant. So then that puts them outside of the protections given by the Geneva and the UN conventions. So that's another thing that has taken place since 9/11. Let's see. What dates seem most crucial to you when you're looking at this list of dates? And as you take a look at these, what are your reactions to some of these measures that were passed or signed in certain years?
2006, the call for the close of Guantanamo by the UN Secretary General, for the United States to be called out in an international way about our prison seems to be a wake-up call to all Americans that this isn't something that's just happening abroad. We are very complicit in these actions.
Yeah, Amnesty International has also done a very extensive report on Guantanamo as well. Please feel free to take any of the literature as you need.
Thank you.
And Guantanamo is not yet closed, although actually quite a few of the Army generals, retired Army generals, and others have even suggested that it should be, and that the prisoners should be tried either according to a standard form of court-martial or according to civil court. As it stands now, those, for instance, those 14 high-value prisoners, they will be tried under a military commission established by the Military Commissions Act. But it's considered to be kind of a substandard form of justice. It's not considered to be really according to international standards of how a trial should be conducted. And it's considered to be, it's been said by many to be substandard even to the system that was set up at the Nuremberg trials to try try Nazis for war crimes. So, any other comments? Okay. So, what is torture? We had our first definition. And here's a little bit, again, from the No to Torture group. Torture is not an effective means of interrogation. It does not yield useful or truthful information. It is, however, a highly effective means of controlling populations. Torture destroys leaders, disintegrates opposition, and terrorizes communities. Please feel free to take it. How do you feel about that statement?
I think it's perfectly true when the torture is aimed at the citizens, but if the torture is strictly used on military POWs, then obviously, I don't think the citizens would really know. Oh, they're torturing, they better shape up and walk the line. And war is a very different place than society.
Yeah, probably the gathering of information, I guess, might be more the aim when it's a prisoner of war.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, prisoner of war is only value, really doesn't hold too much value to the new country unless they have an interest in keeping that person alive, for trading of their officers or getting information out of them. That they really have no motive to keep them alive. So I can't really blame them for wanting to they're not. It's not their government. The government is not responsible for that person. So they were fighting them. They were trying to kill the government. You can't really blame them for that.
Any other remarks on this one? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably true, and in the context of fighting Al-Qaeda, you're not really fighting a state. You're really fighting, if anything, an idea. And the only way you can destroy an organization like Al-Qaeda is to break the will of those behind this idea of Al-Qaeda. I think torture does, fortunately or unfortunately, I think torture does play a role in breaking their will to continue doing the terrorist acts that they do.
One of the resources that's listed on the resource list is a film called Ghosts of Abu Ghraib. And you can get it from Blockbuster, you can get it from Netflix. It was produced by Rory Kennedy, who was Robert Kennedy's youngest child, if you've studied about the Kennedys. But it actually is the story of the enhanced interrogation methods that went on at Abu Ghraib. And if you watch it with somebody you can hold hands with, because it's not pleasant. But watching that and thinking in terms of trying to control a population, that really makes the connection, I think. That film makes the connection there. Yeah?
Wait, what's the connection?
Connection with torture being not just a means of interrogation, but actually being used as a means of controlling a population or instilling fear in a population.
Did it show that it worked?
I'm sorry?
Did the movie show that it worked or no? Or that it was like pointless?
Well, the movie kind of shows the methods that were used, and if you stop to think, for instance, the student here was talking about POWs, but who were gathered up and sent to Abu Ghraib? We're not talking your standard POWs. They were village people, whatever. So what is the effect? You know, what would the people of those villages think if they knew the treatment that their fellow villagers had endured at Abu Ghraib? Yes?
I don't agree with the definition, because I mean, it can be used as a means of controlling, but that's just if that's what you want to be doing. If you just go around picking random people off the streets being said, hey, this person said a bad thing, let's throw them in jail and switch them for a while, then you can use. But if it is used as a means of interrogation, it can be highly effective. Because, I mean, sure, like, if someone started torturing me for information I had, maybe I'll start yelling out fake stuff, trying to get this to keep going. If they kept going on me, they kept torturing me, eventually I'd tell the truth, just to get them to stop.
Are you familiar with any other instances of torture besides the United States? I'm not sure if any of you have studied about it. Yeah.
Argentina.
Argentina. Also in Dr. McCoy's book, if you want to get a hold of that, he talks a lot about France and the war without the Algerian War of Independence. Torture was used on a large population. Lots and lots of people were brought in for interrogation. And he talks about that as opposed to, say, as opposed to torturing individuals, small parts of, just particular individuals. What's the difference between that and actually bringing in large parts of the population? And he talks about both the success of that, if you want to call it success, but also what that does morally to the nation that's in whose name that torture is being inflicted. Yeah.
You ever see The Patriot?
No, I never saw it.
Oh, you gotta see it.
Mel Gibson's movie, right?
Yeah. What I wanted to point out was that England was well known for their torture, especially of prisoners of war, foreign people that kind of get new countries in line. But when they were fighting us, the movie, well, if the movie's right, they were told not to because they wanted to initiate trade after we were done with the war and not have us really angry with them, and upset and continue hard feelings and have us want to trade with France instead.
So there was an effort to do away with torture for that reason.
Right, or at least pinpoint things for certain. It can be a tool, I guess, and the tool can be can have a backlash on you. So you do need to be careful when you use it.
Yes.
All right, so they say torture is not an effective means of interrogation. What exactly would they suggest we do with interrogation?
Okay. There has been a conflict between, if you're not aware of it, between the FBI and the CIA. And the FBI does not believe in enhanced or any type of violent means like this. The FBI has other methodology, so and you can check on that in Dr. McCoy's book. Also, there is the Army Field Manual of Interrogation, which also lays out guidelines. There is there are non-coercive means, and FBI persons are trained in that. It has to do with building a rapport with the prisoner, and even, John McCain also feels that, you rough somebody up, they're pretty much not useful to you anymore. But the FBI has different methodologies. There are non-coercive methodologies. Since I know a lot of people have to leave, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. Let's see. If you feel so moved, and you would like to do something about United States-sponsored torture, I have a brochure called Torture is a Moral Issue, and this is from the National Religious Campaign Against Torture, which is an interfaith group, and you're welcome to take one. I have a really good article here, 5 Reasons Torture is Always Wrong, and this is written by David Gushee, and it's kind of biblical based, so it is a religious argument, it's a spiritual religious argument against the use of torture. And we also I have some more resources, and if you would like to contact your senator or your representative, I have a model letter that you could write. You actually could just put the address and whatever, but generally our legislators don't like form letters too much. So if you kind of use this as a guide and took some of the main points and wrote it up yourself, it would be a little more effective. So anyway, I'd like to thank you again, and if you have questions, my card is also here. This is my contact, and if you'd like any of the materials, if there's not enough, I'll be glad to send it to you. If you have any questions,